Before we begin, take a breath. This isn't just a podcast, it's a new way to think, speak, and live in English. Welcome to Confluent Podcast, where words flow, confidence grows, and every sip brings you closer to fluency.
It is such a privilege to be sitting down for this one today, truly.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. And I actually want to talk directly to you, the listener, for a second before we get into the weeds. Think about, like, the last time you found yourself trying to persuade someone you care about. You know, maybe they were just completely panicking over the relentless news cycle, or maybe they were deeply stressed about some chaotic family situation.
Oh, that's something highly emotional.
Exactly. And you just wanted to help them, right? You wanted them to see reason. So how did that actually play out?
I'm going to guess probably not well.
Yeah, I mean, if your experience is like most of ours, it probably spiraled into this, like, really frustrating circular argument. Voices got louder, defensive walls went right up, and absolutely nobody felt better afterward.
No, they never do. It just adds fuel to the fire.
Right. So today, we are taking a deep dive into how an ancient philosophy can, well, fundamentally dismantle and rebuild our entire modern understanding of communication, of influence, and, true leadership.
And I love this because the shift in perspective we're looking at today, it takes leadership completely out of the corporate boardroom. It's not about being a boss.
Right.
It places it squarely in the realm of, like, internal practice.
Yeah.
We are unpacking this really remarkable piece of source material today. Specifically, it's verse 68 of the ancient Chinese text, the Tao Te Ching.
Oh, it's such a good one.
It really is. And the entire thematic undercurrent of this verse is about bringing out the best, but not in that superficial way where, like, a manager is just yelling at a team to hit a quarterly sales quota.
Yeah, totally. Not that toxic hustle culture stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're looking at personal self-mastery as basically the ultimate anchor in what is becoming an increasingly chaotic world.
Well, let's open up this text because it actively challenges the baseline assumptions we're taught about power from, like, a very young age. Oh, completely inverts them.
Yeah. I mean, we are conditioned to view strength as something loud, right? Something aggressive. We picture the guy pounding the table to dominate a meeting, or the most relentless, hyper-reactive voice on your social media feed.
The loudest person in the room gets the attention.
Right, but verse 68 presents a completely inverted reality. Let me actually just read this specific translation from our sources. It says, "The best warrior is not warlike. The best fighter is not frenzied. The best conqueror is not quarrelsome. The best ruler is not unruly."
Those 4 lines. They are incredibly dense.
Very.
And, the English vocabulary chosen for this specific translation does a lot of heavy lifting to explain the underlying mechanics of power here. Let's actually break down the psychology behind those specific words, especially for those working on their fluency. Take frenzied, for instance.
Oh, that's a great word to unpack.
Right, because a state of frenzy doesn't just mean you're active. It means you are overly aggressive and entirely, like, hijacked by chaotic emotion.
Right. Biologically speaking, when a fighter is frenzied, their amygdala has completely taken over.
Right.
They have lost access to their executive function, their logical strategy.
So they're basically just swinging wildly at the air, exhausting their own energy reserves while being entirely out of control.
Exactly. Which, ironically, makes them incredibly easy to defeat.
Wow.
Then the text gives us quarrelsome, a quarrelsome conqueror.
Someone who just loves to fight.
Right, it describes someone trapped in a state of constantly needing to argue, someone who is perpetually looking for friction just to, validate their own ego.
Oh, we all know people like that.
We do. They are highly reactive, meaning their environment and their enemies are actually the ones dictating their internal emotional state. They aren't in control at all.
That's a huge distinction.
And finally, we have unruly, an unruly ruler. This describes someone who's fundamentally unmanageable and chaotic. The text implies that if you lack all internal self-discipline, attempting to impose discipline on an external population or a team is, well, it's pure hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, reversing all those negative traits reveals something counterintuitive but profound. The text is arguing that the ultimate expression of strength is calm control. It kind of brings to mind the archetype of the ultimate martial arts master.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. Like when you look at the real legends of martial arts, or even how they're depicted in classic cinema, the Grandmaster is never the guy at the center of the room screaming, right? He's not flexing his muscles and throwing 100 aggressive combinations at the air.
No, never.
The true master is the one standing completely still, and the mechanism at play there isn't magic. It's about potential energy versus kinetic energy. Their stance, their breathing, their micro-expressions, they all signal such an overwhelming level of situational awareness that the opponent's brain subconsciously realizes, oh wait, an attack is totally futile.
Yeah, they diffuse the tension simply by refusing to escalate it.
Exactly. The fight ends before a single punch is thrown because their internal discipline just radiates outward.
That visual illustrates the central thesis of the Tao Te Ching perfectly. The opposite of wild, angry, emotional behavior is not weakness. It's not passivity.
Right.
It is a highly calibrated, high-level self-discipline. The foundational law of influence laid out in this source material boils down to one single directive, really. Bring up the best in yourself, and you will naturally bring out the best in others. You alter the environment by altering your own state within it.
Okay, I hear that, and I understand the theory. But I have to admit, on behalf of myself and probably you listening at home, that sounds incredibly difficult to maintain in practice.
Oh, it's the hardest thing in the world.
Because, we don't live in isolation on a mountaintop. We live in a highly connected, deeply anxious society where the people around us are frequently operating out of fear.
Yeah, every single day.
So when a friend or a family member is, spiraling over the latest crisis, our immediate human instinct is to use our words. We want to formulate the perfect logical argument to talk them out of their panic.
And that instinct, right there, leads us directly into what the sources describe as the persuasion trap.
The persuasion trap.
Yeah. There's this Russian proverb highlighted in the material that diagnoses this perfectly. It goes, when the tongue wags, the head doesn't know.
Oh, wow. When the tongue wags, the head doesn't know.
That paints such a vivid picture of someone just processing their anxiety out loud instead of actually observing the situation.
Exactly. It completely mirrors that famous Taoist principle. Those who know don't talk, those who talk don't know.
Right.
It speaks to a deep-seated fallacy in the modern world. We operate under this assumption that if we just find the right combination of words, we can instantly overwrite someone else's reality. But winning a verbal argument has very little to do with establishing truth.
So true.
Highly argumentative people, skilled talkers, media pundits, they win debates every single day by leveraging emotional manipulation. They exploit cognitive biases, even when their underlying facts are completely fabricated.
Yeah, it's a performance. Exactly. And arguing, especially with someone who is already stressed, rarely changes their mind. It triggers a psychological response known as the backfire effect.
The backfire effect, where the argument actually causes them to double down.
Yes. It creates even more resistance. They dig their heels in.
Okay, I hear that, but honestly, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If I am sitting in my living room watching people I care about make terrible fear-based decisions because of some media noise, it feels morally irresponsible not to say something.
Sure.
Don't I have a fundamental duty to step in and present the facts? It feels like keeping quiet is just letting them drown in their own anxiety.
And that moral dilemma is exactly why this philosophy is so challenging to adopt. The urge to intervene with logic is incredibly strong, especially with people we love. However, you have to look at the actual mechanism of panic.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When someone is in a state of high anxiety, their brain is literally not processing logic. It is processing threats. If you come at them with a forceful, argumentative presentation of facts, they don't hear your logic.
Because they're in fight or flight.
Exactly. They just perceive you as another aggressive force that they need to defend against. The source material argues that arguing is not just ineffective, it actively feeds the chaotic energy of the situation.
Wow. Okay, so the alternative is just leading by example. But how does that actually snap someone out of a panic attack or a spiral of anxiety?
It relies on a biological reality, emotional contagion, and mirror neurons.
Oh, interesting.
Right. If you want a panicked room to calm down, you cannot yell at them to be calm. That is a total paradox.
Right, calm down. It never works.
Never. You must become a pillar of absolute strength, calmness, and fearlessness yourself. As human beings, our mirror neurons constantly scan the people around us to figure out how we should be reacting to our environment. So when you do the demanding internal work to remain visibly relaxed and unafraid during a crisis, The people around you subconsciously pick up on that signal.
They realize that, like, while their internal alarm bells are ringing, you are totally fine. So maybe the threat isn't as real as they thought.
Correct.
Hmm.
People are deeply attracted to genuine self-discipline because it represents safety. They will naturally begin to synchronize with your relaxed state. And because of that, they will respect your presence and be influenced by you without you ever having to wage a single debate.
That is so powerful. And actually, our sources brought up two vital English vocabulary words to capture this specific type of minimal, high-impact communication.
Oh, yes. Let's hear them.
Succinct and concise. And I think it's a great application for anyone listening who is, learning to master the English language through the confluent method, because it flips the idea of fluency on its head.
It really does.
Being fluent doesn't mean you just talk endlessly using complex words. To be succinct or concise means you possess the ability to pack a massive amount of meaning, influence, and power into the absolute fewest words possible.
Which is brilliant because it forces a complete redefinition of what a leader actually is in our society.
Yeah.
If true influence doesn't require constant talking, aggressive commanding, or verbal dominance, we have to strip away our assumptions. We have to differentiate between a person who genuinely leads and a person who merely occupies a title.
Yeah, this breakdown from the source material fundamentally changed how I view the dynamics in my workplace, in politics, and honestly, even within my own social circles. The text categorizes power into three very distinct tiers.
Right, let's walk through those. The first tier is simply authority. This is purely structural. It is a rank, a badge, or a position, like a manager or a CEO.
The classic boss.
Exactly. The limitation of authority is that it is assigned from the outside. We have all experienced environments where the person with the official title possessed absolutely zero leadership capability.
Oh, or worse, they possess negative leadership ability.
Yes.
Like, their mere presence in the room makes the team perform worse because everyone is just walking on eggshells trying to accommodate their fragile ego. Authority guarantees compliance, but it never guarantees respect.
Spot on. So, moving to the second tier, we find social dominance. This is the loud, forceful, quote-unquote, alpha personality.
Right.
They don't necessarily need a title because they bully their way to the front. They get people to follow them through sheer intimidation or emotional exhaustion. They just suck all the oxygen out of the room.
And people comply simply because it is too draining to fight them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is a very fragile form of power because it requires constant, exhausting enforcement on their part.
Which brings us to the third tier, which is really the core focus of the Tao Te Ching here: virtuous leadership.
Virtuous leadership is a profound, quiet form of influence.
Mm.
This person might have no official institutional authority, and they completely refuse to use the aggressive tactics of social dominance.
Mm.
Yet, when a crisis hits, every head in the room turns to them. People naturally seek their guidance strictly because of how they handle their own internal state.
There is an analogy in the sources that highlights the absurdity of those first two tiers so well. It's drawn from a scene in Game of Thrones.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. There's a young king who is losing control of a room, and he basically throws a tantrum screaming, "I am the king! I am the king!" And the older, wiser advisor just looks at him and points out the harsh reality. Any man who must say, "I am the king," is no true king.
It's so true.
The mechanism of perceived value is completely shattered the moment you have to verbally demand it. Stating, "I am a leader," means nothing if no one is willingly following your example.
Absolutely. And to ground this in reality, the source material points to one of the most striking historical examples of virtuous leadership we have, Mahatma Gandhi. If you delve into his autobiography, The Story of My Experiments with Truth, you are looking at a man who held no official political office. He commanded no military force, and he possessed no traditional authority in the British Empire whatsoever.
And he didn't even use social dominance, right? He was notoriously soft-spoken.
Very soft-spoken, yet he mobilized millions of people.
So how did he actually achieve that on a mechanical level, without using the usual levers of power?
He utilized pure self-mastery. For example, he maintained a strict vow of silence one day every single week.
Wow. Every week?
Every week.
Yeah.
On Mondays, he simply would not speak. Regardless of the massive political crises swirling around him, he spent time spinning his own cloth.
Wow.
His method of resistance, satyagraha or truth force, was entirely about internal purification rather than external domination.
Incredible.
By mastering his own desires, his fears, and his reactions, his actions became his message. It forced the entire world to lean in and watch his quiet resolve rather than lean back and defend against his words. He brought out the best in himself, and that alone catalyzed a movement that brought out the courage in an entire nation.
It is an awe-inspiring historical reality, but I mean, stepping back into the present day, achieving even a fraction of that self-mastery feels like climbing Mount Everest.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because Gandhi didn't have a smartphone vibrating in his pocket with breaking news alerts every 10 minutes. We live in a society that is aggressively, algorithmically designed to distract and agitate us at all times.
Navigating this modern, brave new world is the defining challenge of self-mastery today. The source material is very clear-eyed about this. Modern media ecosystems, continuous news cycles, streams of propaganda, and we're talking across the entire political spectrum here. They are not designed to inform you.
No, they're designed to hook you.
They are economically incentivized to keep your amygdala firing. They want you perpetually afraid and perpetually angry because high arousal emotions guarantee engagement. Every minute you spend locked in a state of reactionary fear is a minute they have successfully drained your energy and hijacked your capacity for internal control.
It's a relentless extraction of your mental resources. So the deep dive takeaway here is stark. The only viable solution is to sever the connection. Turn it off.
You have to.
We have to accept the humbling reality that we cannot control the global narrative. We can't control the external world. Trying to micromanage the behavior of other people or the outcome of massive societal shifts is just a recipe for chronic stress and burnout.
It'll destroy you.
Yeah. Your sphere of absolute control is terrifyingly small, but incredibly potent. It consists only of your internal thoughts, your emotional regulation, and your own actions.
That internal focus is the only place true power resides.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for the listener again, though, because turning off the 24-hour news cycle is a great first step.
Sure.
But what happens when the real world kicks your front door down? I'm talking about like a sudden job loss, intense financial stress, or a serious personal health crisis. You can't just unplug a router to make those go away.
No, you can't.
So how do you prevent yourself from getting sucked into the very real, very justified panic that those situations create?
The sources offer a surprisingly practical, very modern analogy for this exact problem. It's cognitive reframing through the lens of a video game.
Oh, I found this concept so fascinating when I read it. Walk us through how this reframing actually changes our physiological response to stress.
Okay, so consider the core design of any video game. If you boot up a game and there are no enemies, no puzzles, and absolutely no challenge, what happens to your engagement?
I mean, you would quit within 5 minutes. A game with no friction is just a screensaver. It's incredibly boring.
Exactly the point. So
Yeah.
you start at level 1. It offers a mild challenge, you learn the mechanics, you build your skills, and you master it. Then, the game transitions you to level 2. By design, level 2 is significantly harder.
Right.
The obstacles require faster reflexes, the puzzles are more complex. But critically, because it is harder, the rewards are greater. The friction forces your character to level up their skill tree to survive.
So when life throws a massive, unavoidable hurdle at you, like losing a major client or facing a sudden financial deficit, your default biological response is to perceive it as a lethal threat, which of course triggers panic.
Yes.
But this analogy suggests we interrupt that automatic response and consciously tell ourselves, okay, I have just been bumped up to level 2.
That simple pivot changes everything. It shifts your brain from a threat response, which restricts your blood vessels and limits your thinking, into a challenge response.
Oh, wow.
You are acknowledging that the situation is supposed to be hard. It is functioning exactly as designed to test the resilience you've been building. By treating life's intense hurdles as mechanics in a game, you create a vital layer of psychological distance.
You stop taking the universe's chaos as a personal attack.
Precisely, which allows you to remain relaxed, strategic, and capable of accessing your higher executive functions. You are simply figuring out how to beat the level.
It fundamentally neutralizes the dread.
Mhm.
It takes self-mastery from feeling like this heavy, punishing obligation and turns it into an engaging challenge that you are actively electing to play.
And it is crucial to remember that this process of self-mastery, it's a lifelong pursuit. You do not permanently achieve it over a long weekend retreat.
Right, there's no finish line.
No, it is a daily practice of taking back the steering wheel from external distractions, refusing to be baited into useless emotional arguments, and relentlessly returning your focus to your internal state. That silent, unshakable control is the ultimate expression of power.
Because at the end of the day, if you maintain sovereignty over your own mind, no external force can ever truly defeat you.
You become the eye of the storm, You become that rare, calm presence that others naturally gravitate toward, especially the louder and more chaotic the world gets.
To bring all these threads together for you, the listener, what we have explored today is a total paradigm shift in how we view influence and strength. True power isn't loud, it isn't demanding, and it certainly isn't frantic.
Not at all.
Engaging in constant arguments with people who are trapped in a cycle of fear is almost always a trap itself. If your goal is to positively impact the people you care about, you have to abandon the urge to force them to change using your words. The work begins and ends entirely with mastering yourself.
It is the great paradox of the calm warrior. The less energy you spend fighting the external world, the more profoundly influential you become within it.
It is a profound shift, and it challenges the way we interact with the world on a minute-by-minute basis. We want to leave you with one final thought to unpack on your own as you navigate the days ahead.
The very next time you feel that burning, desperate urge to win an argument, to assert your dominance, or to prove a point to someone who is clearly distressed, pause and ask yourself this. What if the most powerful, commanding, and fluent message you ever send to the world is the one where you do not say a single word?
Let your calm be the loudest thing in the room. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Keep bringing out the best in yourself, and we will see you next time.